The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase in 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, known as North America. And we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers.
Welcome to Our Hamilton, Our Vote, the 2022 municipal election debates presented live by Cable 14 in partnership with the Hamilton Spectator. I'm Mike Fortune, and I will be your moderator. Now, for this debate, we've invited the candidates for councillor in Ward 1 to join us, and with us here in studio, Ian McPherson, John Vale, and the incumbent, Maureen Wilson. Our format includes 2 minutes each for the candidates to introduce themselves. Then our local media panel will be posing questions, with all candidates having a chance to speak to each issue. Viewers at home, if you're watching our live broadcast, please tweet us at Cable14 or email election@cable14.com to share any questions you would like to ask these candidates. And finally, we will wrap up the hour with an open forum for the candidates to question and respond to each other. I'll be doing my best to keep us on track with what's expected for each section and how we are doing for time. So without any further delay, let's get started with our 2-minute introductory statements. If needed, you will get a 10-second warning before I call time. Up first, Ian McPherson.
Thank you, Mike, for the introduction. As you said, my name's Ian McPherson. I'm running for Ward 1 Council. I've lived in Ward 1 my whole life. I've been able to enjoy my schooling throughout Ward 1 from Allenby and Strathcona. Sorry about that. That won't happen again. Ending at Master, and I've just lived my life with honesty and integrity and trying to treat everybody as equals, whether that be from volunteering with Challenger Baseball and talking to individual players about everyday life, or when I helped found the Canadian Association of Pompeii and helped lobby the government to fund the life-saving treatment Myozyme for people with Pompeii throughout Canada. And no matter what or who it is, we all deserve to be heard and treated with respect, and that's what I will do if I'm able to be counsel for the people in Ward 1. A wise man once said the ultimate measure of an individual is not where they stand in moments of convenience and comfort, but where they stand in times of challenge and controversy. And although I've had challenges within my life, I've always maintained a good, positive demeanor, and thank you.
Ian, thank you very much for that. We will now move on to our second candidate, John Vale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Vale, and I am a downtown resident living exactly 2 minutes away from Ward 1, where I shop at the local supermarket, frequent my favorite restaurants, enjoy the theater, and many other amenities. And just to prove that I am a Hamiltonian, here we are. Nobody else has got one of these except John Vale. Anyway, I'm running because I'm just not happy with the divisive, wrong-headed policies being espoused by the current councillor. Unlike her, I am a collaborator who will not pick fights but choose solutions, do not want to defund and will not defund the police, and will not add to our neighborhood congestion with over-intensification. I have no conflict of interest because I have no financial interests with the development community. My only focus will be the residents. Ward 1 deserves better, and I'm offering my candidacy as a choice. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
John, thank you very much for that. And finally, Maureen Wilson.
Good evening. My name is Maureen Wilson. It has been my great honor to have served the residents of Ward 1 as your Hamilton City Councillor for the last 4 years. I ran 4 years ago because I believed I could make a positive change and contribution in service to our ward and our city. I brought my experience as an urban planner, my work in municipal government at a senior level, my experience as a mother, and someone who has called Ward 1 home for over 20 years. As a new councillor, I have been an agent of change at City Hall, advocating and offering greater transparency, focused decision-making, and decisive leadership. If re-elected, I will continue to do my homework, listen attentively, act decisively, and be transparent in my actions. I will also continue to admit my mistakes and learn from them. I have been going door to door this summer, having valuable conversations with Ward 1 residents, asking for their continued support. The residents of Ainslie Wood, Strathcona, Westdale, and Kirkendall know that a strong city rests on the shoulder of strong neighborhoods. We have done significant work together in the past 4 years, and I am very proud of our accomplishments. But there is much left to do, and when you are in the midst of challenges that require solutions, you do not run away. You run again and do the work. Thank you for your time and attention and working with me.
Thanks to each of you for those opening statements and introductions. Now we'll bring in our local media panel, and with us for this debate are Sebastian Braun from the Hamilton Spectator and from CH News, Mr. Al Sweeney. Each of our reporters will be choosing a candidate to answer a question, and then we will open up the topic to any other candidates who wish to speak to it. All of your responses will be limited to 1 minute. Of course, I'll be giving a warning when your time has run out. Our first question comes from Sebastian Braun of the Hamilton Spectator. You're up.
Thanks for having me. I have a question here for Maureen Wilson. An unsanctioned fake homecoming party at McMaster University last year drew thousands of people who wreaked havoc on city streets. Now council wants to tame that revelry with a new nuisance party bylaw that will cover things like disorderly conduct, public drunkenness, littering, damage to property, block streets, and unreasonable noise. But there were already these bylaws and laws in place last fall in 2021. Do you think that this new particular bylaw will do enough to tame the rowdiness that was so known there at the fake homecoming?
Thank you for the question, Sebastian. Yes, I was in the crowd in October of last year. And in fact, I think the pictures that were used by your newspaper and other news outlets actually came from my phone and were credited to me. I was shocked by the mass. And the next day, the next morning, I went door to door in the neighborhood to hear the hurt and the pain and the experiences directly from residents. And within 48 hours, I had a meeting with the president of the university at my request and his senior leadership. I asked them to hold a public meeting with the neighborhoods, and they did. The nuisance party bylaw, which council has ratified, will soon ratify later this month, is Queen's University has a bylaw, Guelph has the same bylaw, Waterloo has a bylaw. Staff looked at best practices, and it was their recommendation that this bylaw provided an all-in-one effort to which we can address and also look for payment to damage from those who participate in those endeavors.
Maureen, we'll let you finish there. And now, will we have any other candidates jump in on that particular question? Yes, Mr. Vale.
Thank you. It's interesting that the bylaw came out after my tour of the ward and having brought it up. So it's not cause and effect, but it's too little, too late. The fact is, we had the problem. We didn't deal with the problem. It all comes back to an existing councillor who doesn't believe in the police, who wants to defund it. And the proof is in the pudding on the boards that she's on, where the stated goals is to defund or shift resources away from the police. So that is, it's a remark that needs to be discussed.
We will give Councillor Wilson a chance to respond, but in the meantime, Mr. McPherson, would you like to respond to that particular question?
Yeah, sure. I agree that bylaws need to be more enforced, and that does involve better policing. I do stand by the police department. And also, I think another way to combat the situation at hand is to add more entertainment district down by McMaster for students to outlet their energy or their partying needs or whatever by adding more restaurants, bars, stuff like that down by there. I don't think putting more restrictions on them that are most likely not going to be enforced, as bylaws aren't enforced that much as is the right answer. I think students would appreciate more entertainment down there, so they don't have to travel, and it would curb drinking and driving as well.
Thank you very much for that. Final word, Candidate Wilson.
Thank you for the opportunity to respond. I understand Mr. Vale has tried to derisively use the term defund. You can use the term defund. You can use the term detask. Let's not get caught up in the jargon. I agree with the Chief of Police, Mr. Frank Bergen, on this. He said on an interview with TVO, and he said in public meetings, that the police are having to take on duties that they were not trained for. And the constituents of Ward 1 want the police to return to that which they are trained to do. Right now, they are busy doing and responding to what is a health crisis, what is a housing crisis, and that is not core policing. You can call it what you want, but it is to enable the police to respond to matters under the criminal code. And I believe that is what the Chief of Police is calling for, and I support the Chief. Thank you.
Thank you all for those responses. We now will move on to Al Sweeney of CHCH. Mr. Sweeney, your question to your candidate, please.
Thank you. John, I'd like to direct my question to you if I could. We're in an inflation crisis right now, driving up the price of everything, gasoline, food, you name it. In a municipal context, we see this in connected to the affordability crisis in housing. As a city councillor, first of all, as a city council, what can a city council do about this? And as a councillor, what would you do?
Thank you for that question, and thank you for allowing me to write that one, because that's right up my alley. Let's go right to the point of the finances, and I am a professional accountant, so it gives me some latitude to speak to that question. First of all, here's what the problem is at City Council. The incumbent, along with the rest of them, have supported a budget that characteristically adds a surplus to the operating budget of the City Council. I had a chance to look at the last statements, and there's over a $200 million surplus in the operating budget of City Hall. Now, as you say, people are having trouble buying gas, buying groceries, paying rent, paying tuition, trying to pay their property taxes, and City Hall is still overcharging all of us under the city budget, which is an approved budget. And I'm not going to complain to the municipal officials about that. It's something a city councillor can fix.
Mr. Vale, that is your 1 minute. We'll open that question to our other two candidates, Mr. McPherson, candidate Wilson. Anybody like to jump in on that one?
Go ahead. Oh, thank you, Ian. If the issue is one of affordability as it pertains to housing and as it pertains to living, yes, inflation is a significant concern to the municipality. For example, the municipality has been putting a meager $4.8 million aside for capital reinvestment. We know that with inflation, that $4.8 million, that will be eaten by inflation off the top. And it's for this reason which we have to have focused decision-making, intentional decision-making, which will help grow our tax base and create good jobs at the same time and provide an array of affordable living opportunities.
Candidate Wilson, thank you very much for that. Mr. McPherson, would you like to respond?
Yeah, sure. If the $200 million is correct and over budget, I would reinvest that money into certain programs like HATS, which is a stepping stone for people to go to instead of using a tent before they hit affordable housing. And when it comes to affordable housing, we need to really follow the Provincial Policy Act, and the way that it determines affordability is 30% of one's annual income. So I think we really need to look at geared to income housing for sure. So people can afford housing throughout Hamilton.
Wonderful. And final word to you, candidate Vale, if you would like, for that particular question.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay.
Point's been made.
Wonderful. Before we bring Sebastian back, we actually have some questions coming in from viewers, so I will be reading this one. And candidate McPherson, we will start with you, okay? During this last term of City Council, there was a lack of decorum in the dialogue, and it often became a distraction. What will you do to try and restore a level of professional, courteous dialogue and debate between councillors should you be elected?
I think we should respect all as individuals, and then that's where we start. And I believe that dialogue should be transparent throughout within the council meetings and throughout public. And yeah, if there's any dialogue that is misleading or derogatory, that it shouldn't be. It should be punished.
Thank you for that response. Mr. Candidate Vale, would you like to get involved with this?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In terms of decorum and civility at City Hall or in any other context where there are groups of people, my experience has been to curb divisiveness by collaboration. My experience comes from serving on many not-for-profit organization boards of directors, condo board president, real estate board president, United Way board president. In my past, also, what else? I can't even remember all the community groups now that are that I have served. And in every one of those, there's at least 2 or 3 hours of conversation and discussion before you can argue as much as you want during the meeting, but you come out as a cohesive group at the end. And that is the only way to run a meeting, and the only way to run a board, and the only way to run a city.
And candidate Wilson, final word.
Thank you. That is a really fundamentally important question. When I was running in 2018, too many residents of Ward 1 said to me, "Why would you want to go down there?" There was Hamilton City Hall. I have knocked on hundreds of doors this summer, and overwhelmingly the response that I have received was, "Thank goodness you are down there." And we appreciate the demeanor and the grace and the respect that you show residents when they're delegating to staff, and to your colleagues. And I think it is important to behave in such a manner because we have to uphold the trust and confidence in the institution. We have also been asked by the Integrity Commissioner when that behavior is not being brought to call it, because for too long the behavior, bad behavior, disrespectful behavior, maligning of character behavior, attacking the integrity of staff behavior has been enabled by silence. Thank you.
Thank you to each of you for those responses to that particular question. Remember, folks, if you're at home watching us live, make sure you send us a tweet at Cable14, or of course, you can send us an email to election@cable14.com. Media panel round 2. He's back from the Hamilton Spectator, Sebastian Braun.
Ian, it's a question for you. The city's decision to withhold the scope and duration of the 24 billion litre sewage leak into Chouteau Creek was one that outraged many Hamiltonians. What's your response to that as a resident, and what would you have done differently if you were sitting on council?
So again, that relates to my previous answer. Transparency is key, especially when it comes to the health of the city and individuals within it. So the fact that things were hidden, I believe anybody that voted to hide it at any point should not be able to go for re-election. The way I see it is us politicians act as CEOs, and our constituents are the shareholders and owners of the business. And if we do not do right by them, a CEO would be immediately fired. So I believe the same should hold true for members of government all the way throughout.
Thank you very much for that response. Question is now open for discussion. Who would like to jump in on this?
I will,
I saw
sir.
Candidate Wilson's hands up.
Thank you very much. Yes, the 24 billion liters of treated and untreated and partially treated sewage in Chouteau did and has shaken the trust and confidence of the residents of Hamilton. The duration of the spill and the volume of the spill was known prior to the 2018 election by the previous council. It was intentionally held back from the public. I was first briefed on the matter in January, and I did what I always do when I receive a briefing. I was shocked by it, but then I went about and did my homework. I intentionally met with the Hamilton Conservation Authority, with the Bay Area Restoration Council, with the head of natural lands at the RBG. I went down into the bowels of the CSO tank at King and Main, where the gate operates, or did operate, and I took a tour of the Woodward Water Treatment Plant. I did my homework. Council has the prerogative to disclose a matter, and it has the same prerogative to make a matter public or to keep it confidential. I argued consistently and strongly that it was in the public interest to let the public know about the duration and the volume. And I also believed it was important because we could not get on with the public remediation of the work in the absence of fully disclosing. And to the point, I also filed my own FOI because I failed to convince council that they needed to release that information. It's on tape, public record, but I was not successful, and I voted consistently against the recommendation thereafter. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Candidate Wilson. Now, we did let you go a little over time because it is a big topic, especially for Ward 1 during the past term. Candidate Vail, would you like to respond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think the phrase that the media coined was Sewergate for that. Don't know if I can who to credit for that, but it's a good one because it says it all. Somebody was asleep at the gate, that's for sure. And any existing councillor like Ms. Wilson who expects to wear it proudly is just, I mean, I just don't understand how anyone can can vote for existing incumbents who knew of the problem, and not only that, the province had to step in. They didn't just not disclose it. They also dragged their feet on it to try and fix it. So it doesn't make any sense to me how you can walk around proudly to try and get reelected with that kind of an issue hanging over your head. Thanks.
If you'd like to respond to that.
Absolutely. I am certainly not espousing pride in what happened. I'm deeply disappointed. I am holding myself accountable for the choices I made. The choice I made was to argue from the get-go with my colleagues that this was in the public interest to be released. I had to convince a majority of my colleagues to change their minds, to publicly release that they knew the volume and the duration, and they knew it prior to the election in 2018. I was not successful. I argued consistently that that had to be released. When it became clear that I was not going to be successful, then I filed my own FOI with the ministry in an effort to disclose, to get something in which I could release to the public about what had happened. And I consistently voted against my colleagues in that regard. Thank you.
We will give candidate McPherson the last word if he would like to this particular question.
Yeah, just again that transparency is key. And again, if any part of government or municipality is withholding information due to public health, whether it be economic or physical, you just should not be allowed to be in that realm any longer. It's a violation to the citizens who hire us and pay us to do a job for them.
Thank you very much to each of you for that response. Al Sweeney, CHCH, he's right next to me. Take it away.
Thanks. Maureen, I'd like to ask you about this movement towards strong mayors in Ontario. What do you think about that? For anybody who doesn't know, the provincial government has passed legislation creating strong mayors in Toronto and Ottawa, allowing the mayor to veto city council decisions, and then that can be overridden by a supermajority of council. This is something that Bob Bertina argued when he was mayor. He thought it was inappropriate that he only had one vote on council when he was elected to represent the entire city, whereas councillors only elected individual wards. What would you think of, and there seems to be a move to apply this beyond Toronto and Ottawa. What would you think of a move to create a strong mayor structure in Hamilton?
I think the move by the Ford government to focus on this is regrettable, because we're not focusing on what municipal governments really need, and that is more legislative authority to be innovative, to take on the kind of responsibilities that it is actually being handed. For example, municipalities can only do that which is set out in the Municipal Act. It has to be permissive. So we need the authority to do something. It needs to be granted to us. I think when you are the head of council, you have a few things going for you. That is, there is only one person who can say they are elected from the electorate. They need to, in their election, run on a mandate that will service the entire city. And they need to string together, through their moral authority, their character, and their skill, a coalition, vote by vote. And I think it takes councillors like myself, as I have said in 2018, that we cannot continue as a city of 15 different cities. We are one city with 15 wards, and there are interests that extend beyond all wards, each ward.
Thank you very much for that response. We will now open this to candidate McPherson or Vale, who would like to respond to that.
I'm happy to
please
to jump in on that one. You must know something that is not generally out there. I mean, my understanding is that piece of legislation does not apply to Hamilton, and it has not been contemplated to extend that at the present time. I didn't hear anything from either Steve Clark or Doug Ford about moving this also to other cities until some results are known. Now, the reason, of course, for it is the gridlock. Now, these guys have worked in municipal government, both of them, and they have some challenges when there's complete gridlock at a city or a town council, and you've experienced that here. So, but I haven't heard that it's coming to Hamilton anytime soon. So I think it's just it's a hypothetical question.
It is hypothetical, but it's certainly out there, and people have acknowledged that it's out there. And are indications that it's going to spread to other cities.
Let's actually get Ian to jump in on this, if you like,
Yep.
please.
Yeah, I think if your thoughts are cohesive with the mayor, I think it would be a great plan. And I agree that what needs to happen is the council members need to be cohesive in their decisions. So to stop the gridlock, as you said. And I believe also that when you have ward councillors, they're there to inform the mayor of what their ward needs. So they should have more say over their ward than the mayor in general. But I also believe that a web-based kind of design to allow the public to weigh in on certain decisions within the city would be beneficial in the way that it would bring professionals in to certain conversations that are outside in the municipal realm, and also give the constituents an equal say on what they want done.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for that response. We will give final word to candidate Wilson, as the question was originally asked to you.
Thank you very much. It is a hard job to lead a city. Hamilton is a wonderful tapestry of rural and suburban and urban. But I think that when you're able to advocate for interests that will lift the entire city up, an effective mayor can do that without being a strong mayor. And I think residents can listen and support an agenda that they know will benefit different parts at different times, and as Ian suggested, work together for the benefit of the city. Thank you.
Thank you all very much for that. We're going to continue on now with some questions from our viewers. This one came in earlier this evening. Can you please speak to their perspectives on the role of the municipal government, the private sector, and the nonprofit housing sector in addressing the affordable housing crisis? Candidate Vail, we will start with you.
Well, thank you for that question. The housing crisis is not just a municipal issue, and it's not just the municipal government that can play that role. It is, and we've used that word, I think we've overused the word in this meeting, collaborative effort. But this truly is a municipal, provincial, and federal issue. And each of us in government have to come up with a solution for that. And it's not just municipal, and you can't really finger point that to one level of government only. I mean, you've got a ward now, we've got houses that, a small house is selling for $1 million now. And I mean, who can afford it? And by the way, whose fault is it? Now, is that the market's fault? Is it the government's fault that people are paying that kind of money, or people are asking that kind of money? So it's a pretty big issue.
It certainly is. We'll continue on now. Candidate McPherson, would you like to respond to that particular question?
Yeah, I mean, affordable housing is a key part of my platform. It's a huge crisis within the city. It does go across all levels of government, and to address it, I will go back to the definition of affordable in the Provincial Policy Act, which states 30% of one's income. if you do that across the board, and someone that makes $100,000 would still be paying a significant amount of their income towards their house. It has gotten out of reach, and I believe the only way to bring it back is to instill that new builds and new buildings adhere about 15 to 20% of their units to that affordable housing definition of 30%.
Wonderful. Thank you for that response. Candidate Wilson, your response.
Without a doubt, this city and many other cities are facing an affordable housing crisis. But it was a crisis that it was not created overnight, and it's not going to be solved overnight. For every action, there is a reaction. We were the only industrialized nation without a national housing strategy until the Trudeau government came into power. And even then, we're not having enough money from the federal government. We are the only province in the Federation where social housing is funded off of the property tax. Social housing was downloaded by the Conservative Harris government in 2000. We know that the private market has not been able to provide the deep affordability that is required, and there is an essential role for government in that regard. It is equally matched by a health crisis. We have people with high acuity needs that need wraparound support in stable, safe housing. We also need to increase our supply. We need to do it within our existing urban boundary, and we need to provide good quality variety of housing for young people. Thank you.
Final word to Mr. Vail on that particular topic.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You know, one thing that will not happen under my watch is forced intensification in the area under the guise of affordability. Do you know, there's other ways of doing this and increasing the housing stock. Example, I've talked to people who have told me it's taken them years to get a building permit just to renovate a basement. So you've heard it too. All of us have heard it. It's just there are other ways of increasing the housing stock without forcing zoning changes that were done this summer by the existing council to force multifamily and housing in single-family neighborhoods. I don't agree with that.
Candidate Wilson, I know you want to get to that. However, we are running out of time in this particular section of the show, so we do have to continue on as we now get into our questions for our Ward 1 candidates. And again, thanks again to our media colleagues for participating. It is now time to get to our open forum, where we will give as many candidates as we can a minute to direct a question to one other candidate. That candidate will have up to 1 minute to respond, and then we'll open up the floor to the third candidate if they wish to comment. I'll let you know when your time requires us to move on, and we drew numbers ahead of tonight's broadcast to determine the order for this segment. Up first, Candidate Vail, your question and who you are directing it to, please.
Well, thank you for allowing me to be number one in Ward 1. A question, obviously, to the incumbent candidate. Your supporters have mentioned to me that you are, and they say it affectionately or otherwise, a polarizing figure. What's your comment on that?
I think it's interesting, Candidate Vail. My supporters, excuse me, are extremely varied. As I mentioned, I haven't seen you at the door at all or at any Ward 1 events. But when I go door to door in each neighborhood, I'm overwhelmed by the support, and that they also tell me that I am able to string together a coalition and identified shared needs across these neighborhoods within Ward 1 and across the city. And again, they remark on my demeanor at council, and you can just watch the tape in that regard. I don't really understand your comment, but I would encourage you to watch council tapes. Thank you.
Ian, would you like to respond to that at all?
I don't mean to attack you or anything like that. But I've been door to door as well, and a lot of the they would be upset at me if I didn't mention this.
Of course.
A lot of the constituents say that you are unavailable and do not promptly or at all return their calls, and I would just ask you why that is. And
Thank you, Ian, for the question. Again, we're not infallible. We get many calls, but I'm very, very proud of our responses, the type of response, and the quickness in which we respond. We use all our social media platforms. I've held over 40 public meetings since being elected. We put out a Ward 1 e-newsletter, which is extremely popular. It sets out what is going on in the city. And it's our effort to try and get information out as quickly as possible and to respond accordingly. And I have been told also that people appreciate the way in which we respond. But I appreciate your feedback as well. Thank you.
And candidate Vale, if you'd like a final comment to your first question.
Well, it's hard to finger point, but what people have told me is that the existing incumbent is a disruptive figure, and it's time to change that.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now move on to candidate Maureen Wilson. Your question, please, and who you are directing it to.
I'll direct it to Mr. Vale. You're welcome. I have, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, had the great pleasure of living in Ward 1 for over 20 years. I've been raising my children here with my partner. My children have gone to school in Ward 1. I shop in Ward 1. I know all the parks in Ward 1 and the libraries. If you're elected, will you be relocating from Ward 2, which I don't think you've ever lived in Ward 1. Will you be relocating to Ward 1?
I'm a proud resident. Are you sorry, did I cut you off, or is that it? I'm a proud resident of Hamilton in Ward 2, which is about 2 minutes away from Ward 1. And the answer to that question is my ties to Ward 1 are very strong, and I owe a debt of gratitude to the institutions of Ward 1. McMaster University, when they went to that business model of outreach to business, and with extra degrees they call them executive degrees so they can charge more money, I think. I took advantage of that and got 3 executive degrees from them. So my son has an MBA from McMaster University, and he's on the road to a successful career. The urgent care center in Ward 1, I think probably helped save my wife's life this year because she had a problem. And so let's not get too hung up. That's a weak argument that, you have to relocate to be able to represent. Well, I'm sorry, we're already integrated into Ward 1 as a family. So, and we use the services of Ward 1, and we are very blessed to have them.
Response?
I'm a proud MAC resident as well, alumnus, so go MAC, go. I think, in my opinion, when you live in a ward, you get to know the subtleties of that ward. It's like a house. You get to know the rooms where the sun shines at certain times. Mm-hmm. You get to know the cold spots. You get to know what works, what doesn't, the parks, when they're busy, who you see in the park, but equally as important, who you're not seeing and why. Always looking and experiencing and wanting to know what is the role of government to make sure the neighborhoods and your entire ward are an inclusive place that can work for everyone. Thank you.
Ian, would you like to weigh in on where you live in response to that question?
I do reside in Ward 1. This question was asked to me earlier, whether it matters if you win sorry, if you live in the ward or not. And I'll answer the same way I did before. I don't really think it matters whether you live in the ward or not. I've lived in Ward 1, as I've said earlier, my whole life. I am familiar with what goes on in my neighborhood and certain neighborhoods around me. But as far west goes, I mean, I only know a little bit here and there. I'm not really in tune with it like Maureen is describing. I don't think any of us are. So if you have a comprehensive mindset and ideas to put place in what that ward needs, I think it doesn't matter whether you live in the ward or not, no.
Okay. Thank you all for those responses. I think we will move on to our next question, and asking that is going to be Candidate McPherson. Your question and the candidate that you would like to ask, please.
Okay, this will be asked of Maureen. It goes back to the defunding or reallocating of funds within the police department. I've watched video and read articles where you say your reallocations would include social programs and things outside the police department. How do you intend to do that while keeping our community safe with drugs and theft on the rise? Yeah. Yep.
Thank you for the question, Ian. When I've been speaking to Ward 1 residents, they're asking, experiencing theft, and they'd like to see a police car on their street, and explaining to them, as it has been explained to me by Acting Sergeant Butt, who is at present the crime manager, with whom I have a very close relationship, that the police they have to triage their work. And so they have to respond and are most active to those very heavy, complex matters, often outside of our ward. And in speaking to police officers, they don't enjoy that work. That's not what they were trained to do. And I think that there are other professionals and other services that could assist in doing that heavy lifting professionally and allowing the police to return to their core functions to address the very issues in which you have raised. We can call it defunding, we can call it detasking, we can call it modernizing the police. But I think when you talk to the police and listen to the police, they're anxious to return to those core policing functions. How it would be done would be obviously with the police in a leadership position and in collaboration with community agencies and with the people on the ground. Thank you for that question.
Mr. Vale, your response to that particular question?
Well, thank you. What a political answer. I mean, if the police are listening to this program right now, they know very well that the existing councillor doesn't look after them. They know, and that's why they're soft on crime, particularly in Ward 1. It's a no-brainer here. So you can't rewrite history. As far as I know, a lot of the incumbent councillor's core support comes from people who believe she is of the opinion that we need to defund the police. So for those of you who are out there saying, yeah, we believe in defunding the police and she's our person, there's some backpedaling going on here, Mr. Chairman.
Candidate McPherson, I know that was your question. However, Candidate Wilson, would you like to respond to that comment?
I think I've said what I've said, but I will take exception on behalf of the service to the notion that they are soft on crime. I think that does a disservice to the Hamilton Police Service and their professional integrity. Thank you.
Candidate McPherson, final word to you.
Yes, in response, I have talked with police officers as well, and you're right. Over 70% of what they deal with is mental health, drug abuse, and stuff like that. And you're completely right when you say that they want to get back to what they were trained to do. But by reallocating money out of the police department, you're interfering with such programs as MCRRT, which is where social workers now attend beside police officers on certain calls. So to reallocate the money outside of the police force would hinder such programs as these. And
Thank you very much for that response. I'm being told that we have time for one more round of quick questions. We got about 6 minutes left. So with that said, candidate Vale, if you have another question and would like to pose it to one of the candidates, please.
Yes, I'd like to pose the question to my colleague on my right here. Tell me about what's going on with wheelchair access in Hamilton. You'd be educating me a little bit. You have a pretty fancy wheelchair there. And I've heard, frankly, in previous conversations like this, that we're not doing enough for mobility in Hamilton, particularly with our broken sidewalks. Never mind the roads, which are also broken. That's another topic I hope we get to. But what about those sidewalks and ramps and all these things? I mean, my wife has a walker. My late mother had a wheelchair, so I sort of get it, but I don't get it. So maybe you can help.
Ian, your response, please.
So it goes to infrastructure. Hamilton needs a complete redo in infrastructure, including sidewalks and roads. And there is a lot of things that could be better, no doubt about it. But overall, I don't know. I mean, I experience it, but I don't look at myself as in a wheelchair, I guess. So it's hard to answer this question, but obviously there are places that are unacceptable. I used to have my friends call me and be like, "Hey, come to this bar." I'd be like, "You sure it's accessible?" They're like, "Yeah." I get there. There's one step. That one step makes it inaccessible, and they were so used to just going up one step and not realizing it. So like even one step makes it inaccessible. So to ask all
Candidate McPherson, thank you very much for that response, and thank you very much for the question. We do have to keep moving if we like to get through all the candidates. With that said, Candidate Wilson, if you have another question that you would like to ask, let us know who you'd like to pose it to.
I would like to thank Ian for registering very early and making the decision to run. And I've had an opportunity to share his company at a few events. Ian, if I could go back to the main question of what do you think Ward 1 needs in terms of making it a better place for individuals and families?
Smoother sidewalks and roads. But I think that's throughout Hamilton. Again, to ask all businesses to be accessible is a big task. I think one way to do it would be to maybe require a carpenter to make certain ramps for one steps, and maybe have a disability delegate on council to address these issues. There's a lot of places throughout Hamilton that I don't know that maybe not as accessible as some of the places I frequent. But another funny thing is that when you go on to certain places, they'll have a ramp to get up there, but they won't have a door opener, right? So then you have to wait and ask someone to open a door, and there'll be a sticker, oh, knock, and we'll come assist you, but waiting in the winter is kind of cold.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you very much for that response. Again, we'd love to get to all of you. However, we are going to give the last question to candidate McPherson before we have to wrap up for the hour. If you have a question that you would like to ask one of your colleagues here. And if you don't, that's okay.
I'm good.
Okay, sounds good. You know what then? We are going to move on. Our time is wrapping up, and it will give our candidates an opportunity for their closing statements. Once again, they are, no closing statements this time. They are once again in order: candidate Ian McPherson, candidate John Vale, and candidate Maureen Wilson. So Hamilton, this concludes our Ward 1 debate. Remember, it's our Hamilton, our vote, and election day is October 24th. You can find everything you need to know, including a list of all of the candidates running for City Council, as well as the public and Catholic school boards on the City of Hamilton website at hamilton.ca/elections. Please get out and vote, whether in person or by mail-in ballot. Then join us that evening for all your local election results. And a reminder that you can find a complete schedule of all of our upcoming election debates on our website at cable14.com/elections. And we especially invite you to join us on Tuesday, September the 27th, beginning at 7 p.m. for the live mayoral debate. If you are watching us live tonight, please stay tuned as the Ward 2 debate will be coming up at 8:30. But right now, we bring you part 1 of our exclusive sit-down interview with Mayor Fred Eisenberger as he prepares to leave office. Once again, thank you to all of our candidates in Ward 1. I'm Mike Fortune. We'll see you again soon.
When an impaired driver killed my brother DJ, my life changed forever. During the pandemic, all of our lives changed, and many of us turned to alcohol and drugs to cope. As life returns to normal, the increase in substance use from COVID has lingered, and some police services report an increase in impaired driving that caused heartbreak and devastation. Now, more than ever, we need your commitment to never drive impaired, and to encourage all of your family and friends to do the same. Together, we can save lives.
Get your phones out, Hamilton. Scan the QR code on your screen to take you directly to cable14.com, where you can find out about our shows, see our TV schedule, learn about our hosts, and so much more.
Tune into THN this month as we give you some of the events happening throughout the month.
Yeah, that's right. Lions Lair, also 12th year Dave Carter Innovation Factory.
We'll also give you a chance to win tickets to Disney on Ice at First Ontario Centre.
And we look ahead to see what's going on with the hometown Hamilton Bulldogs.
Love it. All this and much more right here on the Hamilton Network. Visit cable14.com/THN for airtimes.
I felt really alone when John died, and the United Way program really, I reached out to them and they just really helped me feel less alone and helped me feel validated in my grief, which has been tremendously helpful during a time when I've never felt so alone in my life.
If alcohol builds a wall around you that doesn't let you see where you're going, that keeps you feeling isolated and alone, that makes you feel hopeless, know this: we're here to help if you want us to. It's never too early or too late to ask for help with a drinking problem. Alcoholics Anonymous, there is a way out. For more information, visit aa.org and download the Meeting Guide app.
The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
Hello, I'm Connie Smith, and welcome to a Cable 14 special presentation. He's been a part of Hamilton's story since he arrived at Leuna Station as a little boy. A little boy who couldn't speak English, but grew up to be mayor of Canada's 10th largest city. His is a story woven into the growth and evolution of this city over the past, or the best part of the past quarter century. There's everything you've read and seen and heard about him in the media. Perhaps you've met him in person as well. But what's his story? That's what we're going to delve into today. Fred Eisenberger is my special guest. And Mayor Fred, here we are, a short distance, but quite a long way from those Mohawk College days.
Yeah, no kidding. What a journey it's been. So that whole period and that foundation of education actually has held me in good stead, and it's held you in good stead.
We didn't even know it, but we were at Mohawk College at the very same time.
Yeah.
And here we are today. How does it feel, first of all, not to be involved in an election campaign?
Very strange. I have to say this is the first time in about 25 years that I'm not on the ballot in some form or another, and it's very bittersweet. You know, it's been an honor and a privilege to have been the mayor and councillor for as long as I have. I didn't set out to do that at the outset. It was not my career aspiration, and it kind of grew into the next evolution in terms of involvement. But very pleased and proud of where we've ended up, and I think the city of Hamilton is in great shape, and looking forward to passing it on to someone else that'll take it from here.
You must feel a big sense of relief, though, to be just sitting out and not be part of that rushing around and the stress and the tension. So there's got to be a little bit of relief there.
Well, I've never been overly fond of campaigning. It is difficult. It's enjoyable when you're in it, but there's lots of stress and strain, especially if you're the mayor and you're campaigning at the same time. That is, doubly challenging because there's still work to do. So now I get to kind of finish my days with just the work I have to do and not have to worry about a campaign. And it'll be interesting to watch others get out there and share their message, whatever that's going to be, and try and impress upon the people what they're going to do for our great city.
We're going to come back to the present and then the future a little later on, but let's take a little trip back in time. I talked about that little boy coming here from Amsterdam. So paint us a bit of a picture of what was happening with the Eisenberger family back in Holland then. What precipitated the decision to start a new life in Canada?
You know, as my father tells the story, mother and father tell the story, is there was opportunity, a lack of opportunity in Holland, the Netherlands at that point, after the war years. They were having a difficult time keeping people employed, and they were offering up some benefits for people to choose other locations around the world. So some of the choices that we had were USA. Everybody wanted USA at some level or another. Australia was another option, and Canada. And they took USA off the map as they were applying for landed immigrant status, and so it became between Australia and Canada. And they picked Canada because they thought, well, if we go to Canada, there's a slim chance that we're going to see our family again. If we go to Australia, probably not. A long, long way. Now, they told us this story when we were about 18 or 19 and said Australia was in the mix, and for us 18 or 19-year-olds, we're going, you didn't pick Australia.
Oh, come
Why?
on, beaches,
beaches,
year-round.
warm air, great climate, surf and turf and whatever. But Canada has been a real opportunity, and I give my parents great credit. It's a typical immigrant story, but one that took a lot of courage, and many people took that step. And we're as a family the better for it.
Do you remember the moment when you arrived or at some point in the journey, a certain crystal clear memory that you've carried all these years?
Oh, there's a few. For one, we left Amsterdam on a boat called the Seven Seas in February, so it was the middle of winter. So we were going through, around icebergs, and we had many memories on the boat, sliding back and forth, throwing snowballs at the captain, trying to knock his hat off. I mean, we had some fun on the boat, but my entire family got sick, except for myself. So I was the one that was getting the water and the wet cloth, and because back then they didn't have stabilizers. It was a rock and rolling ship. And then arrived in Halifax. I remember very little about Halifax because you didn't spend much time there. So basically you came to port, you got off the boat, you got processed, and you went over top of the railway tracks, got into the train, and away you went. So Halifax was no memory at all. I remember the train ride, which was a couple of days, and then landing at Leona Station right here in Hamilton.
Why Hamilton?
My father was a plumber steam fitter, and Hamilton was an industrial town. And from his perspective, it was the place to be in terms of future jobs. And he came first a year before we actually arrived by boat, and landed a job at International Harvester and secured a home on Stanley Avenue in the West End near Locke Street. And that's where our journey in Canada started.
You spoke not a word of English?
Not a word. And I remember being dropped into a grade 1 classroom at St. Joseph's on Locke Street. And after about 10 minutes, I'm saying, I don't know what's going on here. And we lived on Stanley Avenue, which is just around the corner. I went home. I did that about 5 times. The nun, very speedy little nuns they had back then, and I'm sure they still are today, would catch me just before I got home and pull me back to the classroom. Ultimately, they pulled my brother out of grade 2 and sat him beside me, and to this day my brother feels he lost a year of schooling because he had to keep me in the classroom.
Oh, that little brother, right? So you were 8, right? 8 years old.
Yeah.
So what was it like, though, as a little guy and everyone speaking this foreign language? How did you learn? What were the services available then?
There weren't any for immigration other than, other Dutch nationals that had come here already that were helpful. They were trying to get people jobs and opportunities, or, help search for homes. But basically, beyond that, you were on your own. And to be honest with you, I do not remember how I went from all Dutch to all English. It it didn't take very long. And a young child, you're just a sponge, right? You absorb it so quickly. I don't remember the process. I don't remember the struggle. I just remember the first days of not understanding, and then, very quickly, figuring out what was going on and how to navigate our way through that. And then the language just came, within months, I was fluent in English. So. And I'm sure that's a pretty common experience for a lot of kids that get dropped into a place and it's sink or swim, right? Either you learn fast or something else happens. But it was great experience, and we ended up then moving to the East End, and like many immigrants, ended up living in geared to income housing, that kind of helping hand to help immigrants get established in Canada. And that took us to, like 18 years of age, before our parents could actually get into the regular housing market through the Home Ownership Made Easy plan. I don't know if you remember that one, but that happened, quite some time ago, where the province of Ontario actually subsidized properties to give people an opportunity to get into the housing market, and then everything grew from there. But so the original mission for the family was a better life for themselves and for their kids. And that happened in spades for our entire family.
So you became a teenager, you had a part-time job delivering fish and chips,
Fish and chips at Parkdale Fish and Chips on a bike.
Wow.
Pedaling like crazy to get it to the right spot. The Struss family was the owner of the fish and chip shop. I still see the Struss boys that are actually own property downtown in various different locations. Kentucky Fried Chicken, went to high school, or St. Eugene's to grade school after St. Joe's, Sir Winston Churchill High School after that, and then Mohawk College. And then, the political aspiration hit at some point. many years later, and got an opportunity to run against a Fred Lombardo and Reg Wheeler, names you will remember.
Yes, covering
many others
council.
won't. They've been on council for a long time. And I won that first election in 1991 by 19 votes.
So at what point did the whole idea of getting involved in politics occur to you? Was it just meeting them one day, or did something happen in current events? What sparked that?
There were a few moments where I got to meet some of the politicians that were active, and in my mind, I was also studying environmental sciences at the University of Waterloo at the time, and I didn't believe that the city was doing enough on the environmental side to get us to a better place. So, environmental contamination, air quality issues, water quality issues were all very, important issues for me. And having seen, where I could actually participate, suddenly it occurred to me that having two long-term councillors vying for one spot would be an opportunity to potentially get some votes on a kind of a change basis. So I basically decided to give it a whirl, not thinking that I was going to win. I did win by 19 votes, and I'll tell you that Reg Wheeler, as gracious a man as he was, and he was a wonderful man, I loved them both, said, he could have asked for a recount and said, let the kid have it.
I could just hear him saying that.
Yep.
Let the kid have it.
Yep.
So brand new Ward 5 alderman, what was that whole initiation into municipal politics like?
Well, it was a great learning curve. I mean, I was obviously excited to be there, and a great opportunity to learn the ins and outs of the city, and I think that level of experience matters a great deal. Got to understand the media. Obviously, part of the process for anyone that's elected is how do you deal with the media? How do you not get into trouble all the time? And so that was a journey. How to work through the kind of the policy process, and how do you get things done, and how do you develop a vision? And for me, it was always about generating a forward-thinking vision for our city that even started back in 1991. So I actually pushed for and got the first waterfront redevelopment study underway that really spoke of what do we do with the lands from the HMCS Star all the way over to the high-level bridge. And many of those elements have now come to pass. And so very proud of the fact that we got that vision out in the broader community. And so the learnings were have a vision, try to convince people to come along, and have tenacity. Have tenacity to keep at it, because politics and government can be a slow grinding process, but you can be successful with tenacity and vision.
And patience.
And patience.
And patience.
Yeah.
Okay, so a big jump when it comes to running for the mayor in 2000 of this brand new amalgamated city, that was pretty gutsy.
Yeah, and it was 9 years after I'd been a councillor already, and so got to understand what it took to be a mayor or back then a regional chair was very prominent. We had a number of mayors in the broader community. I was on regional council, so got the benefit of that broader experience of the whole area. So amalgamation was just an opportunity to either bring a new and forward-thinking vision to the table. So I thought probably time for me to either go up or out, and clearly it was out. But it was a great experience, and I will to this day say that they picked exactly the right person for mayor at that time, Bob Wade. And and given that moment in time, when I reflect back on it, amalgamation was a pretty big issue. You needed to have the gravitas to be able to bring people together. I was probably a little too rambunctious and too visionary. And Bob was very much about bringing people together.
Conciliator, wasn't he?
Conciliator,
yes.
Yeah. So they picked exactly the right guy at that moment in time. But it was a great learning experience of how you run a campaign. The mayor's campaign is probably the biggest campaign that you can run, because even federal candidates get elected in a riding. Other than prime minister or premier, who still have to get elected in writing, mayorships are the entirety of the city. And so it was a great learning opportunity, great experience. It wasn't daunting, so others might have
stung a little bit.
A little bit. I would say I agreed with the outcome, although would have liked to have won. You always run to win, but wasn't really daunted by the fact that we could get on to other things, and I did. I mean, there was other opportunities, and
Well, you're still,
none of it's been wasted.
You were still an alderman then? You were still...
No, I was out.
You were totally out then?
I was totally
right.
out, and I
Okay.
was, ended up doing some consulting work and had my own little consulting firm.
Port Authority?
And
Is that when
did
that
some
came
Port
into it?
Authority
Right.
work,
Chair of the
exactly,
Port
and had a
Authority.
great opportunity to get appointed there by the Honourable Sheila Copps, who obviously saw some value in the work that I've been doing, and especially on the waterfront side. And so I had a great experience at the Port Authority, and kind of led them to a new chapter as well, which previous to that was the Harbour Commissioners, with lots of litigation and challenges.
Harbour Gate.
We were able to get past all of that and develop a good, strong relationship with the city, and I'd like to think we had something to do with that. And then another opportunity right from here kind of came around.
Yeah, so was that still in the back of your mind that you wanted to get back into politics?
It was.
Right.
I wasn't quite done. I still had the aspiration around environment, around the waterfront now, which I put a lot of time and effort into. I believe that our waterfront should have been more accessible, and slowly but surely that's come to pass. Not singularly because of me, but many, many others have come to the table to actually help that happen. So I did not let go of at that point of the aspiration of some point getting back to the leadership in the mayor's office, yeah.
So that was germinating in the back of your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And when we come back, we're going to see how Fred Eisenberger found his way to that mayor's chair after all.
We are the Elections Ambassadors, and we have spent the past 8 weeks visiting 96 locations across the city. We've been engaging with members of the community about the upcoming municipal elections on October 24th, 2022.
Over this time, we've heard from many of you with some frequently asked questions.
Today, we'll be answering those questions. This year, we have 157 polling stations on Election Day.
Eligible voters in Hamilton will elect these offices: Mayor, 15 City Councilors, 11 English Public School Board Trustees, 9 English Catholic School Board Trustees, 1 French Public School Board Trustee, and 1 French Catholic School Board Trustee.
You are eligible to vote this October if you are a Canadian citizen, are at least 18 years old, reside in Hamilton, or are the owner or tenant of land in Hamilton, or the spouse of such owner or tenant, and are not prohibited from voting. You can check to see if you're on the voters list or add yourself to the voters list online by visiting hamilton.ca/elections or by calling 905-546-4365.
Advanced poll dates are going to be held on October 7th, 8th, 14th, and 15th.
To receive a ballot, eligible voters must present a piece of identification showing their name and address, or complete a statutory declaration that they are an eligible voter. A list of acceptable forms of identification can be found by visiting hamilton.ca/elections.
If you're eligible to vote, but your name does not appear on the voters list and you do not have a permanent lodging place or fixed address on Election Day, you can complete an application to amend voters list at the polling station. You can use the address or the area where you've been sleeping the past 5 weeks before the election.
If you require assistance at the polling station, you can bring a friend along to help you or ask an election official on site for assistance. Your assistant may go behind the voting screen with you. However, they must make an oral declaration first.
If you are a student going to school and living in Hamilton but consider your home to be the place where you live while you are not attending school, you are eligible to vote in both your home municipality and in Hamilton, where you currently live while attending school.
All polling stations are accessible and are equipped with magnifying sheets, additional seating, and accommodations for assistants. Additionally, 15 polling stations, 1 polling station in each ward, are equipped with an accessible tabulator for individuals who require additional assistance to vote. We hope that this has been helpful. Remember to vote in the municipal election this October.
We look forward to seeing you there.
If you have any questions or want to learn more, visit hamilton.ca/elections.
Did you have fun? Check this out. It's nice, right?
On October 24th, Hamiltonians will go to the polls to elect a new mayor and members of the Hamilton City Council. Look, it's an important decision that will be vital to the success of our city, really, let's face it, for years to come. The Cable 14 debates, well, they have long been one of the most significant events in any election campaign. And we invite you to join us this month for our series of live debates featuring candidates running for the office right here in Hamilton's 15 wards. And of course, for the mayor of Hamilton. It's our Hamilton, and it's our vote live right here on Cable 14.
I'm not stupid. I wouldn't drink and drive. She relies on me. They're counting on me. I'd never put them in danger. But I did. And it cost me everything.
Impaired boating is impaired driving.
Get your phones out, Hamilton. Scan the QR code on your screen to take you directly to cable14.com, where you can find out about our shows, see our TV schedule, learn about our hosts, and so much more.
There's no greater support than a loved one's embrace. When you participate in the kidney walk or support someone who does, you're showing your loved one that you've got their back. Whether you're counted on for trips to dialysis, for a transplant, or a listening ear, there's no end to the support you give. When you walk, you demonstrate just how endless that support is. Walk in your community on Sunday, September 25th. Register to walk at kidneywalk.ca.
The following is a Cable 14 special presentation.
The city of Hamilton is situated upon the traditional territories of the Erie, Neutral, Huron-Wendat, Haudenosaunee, and Mississaugas. This land is covered by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, which was an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care for the resources around the Great Lakes. We further acknowledge that this land is covered by the Between the Lakes Purchase in 1792 between the Crown and the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. Today, the city of Hamilton is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, known as North America. and we recognize that we must do more to learn about the rich history of this land so that we can better understand our roles as residents, neighbors, partners, and caretakers.
Hello and welcome to Our Hamilton, Our Vote, the 2022 municipal election debates presented live by Cable 14 in partnership with the Hamilton Spectator. I'm Mike Fortune and I will be your moderator. For this hour, we have invited the candidates for councillor in Ward 2 to join us. With us here in studio are Shahan Aaron, the incumbent, Jason Farr, Cameron Kretsch, Robin McKee, and Raquel Rakovic.
Hello.
Our format for this debate includes 2 minutes each for the candidates to introduce themselves. Then our local media panel will be posing some questions to them, with all candidates having a chance to speak to each issue if they wish. Viewers at home, if you're watching our live broadcast, please tweet us at Cable14 or email election@cable14.com to share any questions you'd like to ask these candidates. And finally, we will wrap up the hour with an open forum for the candidates to question and respond to each other. I'll be doing my best to keep us on track with what's expected for each section and, of course, how we are doing for time. So, without further delay, let's get started with our 2-minute introductory statements. If needed, to our candidates, I will be giving you a 10-second warning before I call time. Up first, Shahan Aaron.
Thank you, Mike. As he introduced, my name is Shahan Aaron. Why me? I'm here because the City Council needs some representation from the people of color. We are a visible marginalized group. However, we don't have enough representation in our community, in our municipal governments. That's what I'm here to do. I'm Shahan Aaron, but I'm your people. I'm introducing myself here. I'm sitting in front of you. I'm wearing a yellow tie on a blue shirt and a yellowish color coat. It's because inclusion matters. I want to represent you by being the change that you want to see. I can introduce you to you about my acolytes, the things I have done. Yes, I have been involved with Dart's Transit as a board of director. I have been on the ACPD. I serve as the Transportation Working Group chair. But these are just titles. These does not describe what I do and what I can do for you. I want to bring that change of leadership, that accountable leadership that you can count on. Someone you can speak to on the street, someone you can connect with at an emotional level. That's what I want to do. I want to be your connection to our city, to the city that represents you, to the people that represent you. I can go on and on about various things I have done, but what's the point? You need to see us in action to believe that we can do what you need to do. But because this is an introduction, you can find me at shahanforward2.ca. You can find me on social media. Just type Shahan Aaron. I will be on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, as well as TikTok. Although on TikTok you might not find too many videos of me doing funny things, but I do have a guide dog, Jeter, and you will see him do a lot of funny, fun things.
Shahan, thank you very much. That is our 2-minute introductory time limit for you. We will now continue to move on. Candidate Farr, you have 2 minutes.
Mike, thank you very much, and thanks to the Spec and Cable 14, as always, for the election coverage. Congratulations as well to my fellow candidates for stepping up. I'm Jason Farr, jasonfarr.ca, seeking re-election as your Ward 2 councillor after 3 terms successfully serving you at City Hall. And I know I have the experience and the proven results that the next term of council will demand, given the strong cost of everything lately. Despite what seems sometimes like insurmountable pandemic-related challenges this term, we have many achievements to celebrate in Ward 2. We have funded housing and homelessness in record numbers, over $500 million since 2019, about half coming municipally and highlighted by housing 1,100 homeless individuals and families. And at the same time, our downtown residential and population growth is burgeoning. 2,800 new residential units since 2016, 10,000 new units to come. After decades of stagnation, we've spent 10 years growing up, and we are ready, at least in Ward 2, for the no urban boundary expansion game. I know from our years together that growth has been important to you too. It cleans up brownfields, it brings fun new shops and restaurants and open spaces, but through steadfast engagement, we've managed to make your neighborhoods better too. With 2 new community centers, transport trucks off our downtown streets, protected over 2,000 heritage buildings, rehabilitated a lot of residential streets with more to come, renewed nearly all of our parks and built new parks, committed $140 million so far to our waterfront, endorsed a new film and television precinct, a new entertainment district, and significantly improved the pedestrian experience, welcoming 20 police dedicated to traffic safety as well. Devoting more than $500,000 towards unbudgeted city housing projects recently, planting trees, committing to bees. We're doing a lot together, and I want to continue to work with you and do even more. On October 24th, let's maintain the momentum. Let's make sure everyone counts with experience and results. jasonfarr.ca.
Candidate Farr, thank you very much for that. We will now move on to Cameron Kretsch, your 2-minute introduction.
My name is Cameron Kretsch, and I'm running for Ward 2 City Councillor. I live in the Durand neighborhood with my partner Derek, and I'm proud to make Ward 2 my home. I walk and cycle the downtown streets, shop at local businesses, and I'm an actively engaged member of the downtown community. For the past 5 years, I own a small business where I work with hundreds of contractors and clients across southwestern Ontario, and before that was the president of a large labor union where I represented thousands of workers. I'm running because I love this city, and I think we all deserve so much better. I, like so many Hamiltonians, see an incredible amount of potential for our city, a city that lifts everyone up, a city that has leaders who demonstrate care and compassion, and a city that has excellence as its standard. We need that now more than ever. But as I continue to hear from Hamiltonians, our city council and our current councillor have squandered that potential and held us back for far too long. Since I filed my nomination papers on May 2nd, I've knocked on thousands of doors. The resounding message I'm hearing from residents is they've lost trust in their municipal government and that they're sick and tired of the many scandals and cover-ups that continue to give our city a bad reputation. They don't trust their council to make meaningful changes to address the affordable housing crisis, to take the climate emergency seriously, or to ensure that our streets are safe for everyone. I'm running to change that. I released a detailed platform that prioritizes these issues, along with many others. People tell me that they admire my commitment to transparency and accountability, my compassionate and caring approach, my ability to listen and apply what I learn, and my willingness to speak out publicly. They tell me that I do my homework, I show up, and I've earned their trust. I will bring all of this to the council table and will continue to advocate for my neighbors, friends, and everyone who calls our downtown home. On October 24th, I ask for your support by voting for Cameron Kretsch for Ward 2 City Councillor.
Thank you very much for that opening statement, Candidate Kretsch. We will now move on to Candidate Robin McKee. Please, you have 2 minutes.
And thank you, Mike, and thank you, Cable 14, for inviting us. I want to thank you very much for thinking of me tonight, for being here. I'm Robin McKee, and I'm a local historian here in Hamilton, and I do something very different. I bring people into the Hamilton Cemetery, not to get shot, but to learn their local history by the people that are buried there. I've been doing that for 20 years, and I do it for free, and it's I pay it forward situation. I have the knowledge, and I give it freely. I'm known as a cemetery guy, but I'm also known as Mr. Hamilton. For 25 years, I've been on committees of the council, and I've met the issues. I've known the staff, and that's extremely important because that's what you get things done. And I know the councillors. I've also been known as the corporate memory for the new managers coming in. And right now I sit on the Municipal Heritage Committee, and that is for heritage buildings. And I see that there's got to be a good balance between development and keeping our heritage. Our heritage brings a lot of money into the city with cameras and movies and what have you. That's where that comes in. So you have to have a good balance of both. I live in Ward 2. I have a designated property that I restored, and I live in it now. The pandemic was good to me. I was able to write 3 books. So I'm now an author. I've already had an election this year, and that election I won as the author of the year and a tourist attraction. I'm the only person in 15 years that has become a tourist attraction for Hamilton. I
Mr.
beat out the
McKee,
RGB.
our time is wrapped up
Oh,
for that
sorry.
2-minute introductory statement. Thank you. No worries at all. And finally, to wrap things up for your Ward 2 candidates, Raquel Rakovic, please take it away. Rakovic.
It's okay. Thank you, Mike. Good evening, everyone. My name is Raquel Rakovac. I was born and raised in Hamilton. I am a Cathedral High School alumni, a mother, a small business owner, a coach to many of our community members and athletes, a music artist, all in the downtown core. As a woman and a new mother with 2 very young children, I never doubt my ability to show up and achieve any goal I put my energy towards. Having children has never made me feel any less capable of my dreams. It has only shown me the challenges I am willing to work through to reach my goals. Moms can have multiple careers and care for their families. I live that proof right now. I continue to do all these things simultaneously throughout this entire election. This is a testament to my leadership ability to work through extreme challenges. I am here for it, Hamilton. As a coach, you learn to understand all people, each unique in how they visualize and work at their goals. Working with opposing views and finding balanced solutions to reach goals is one of the most critical assets for a counselor to bring to the table. This has been my job for the past decade. We recognize the need for change and the many challenges ahead, and transparency is essential to build trust. But we must champion language and action that seek to unite all people, not divide them. I support working together for immediate solutions for short-term housing, met with mental health and addiction resources, affordable housing, climate change initiatives. We need increased tree canopy, mass transit for everyone, safe streets initiatives, pedestrianizing all children areas such as schools, community centers, small business support, and building an inclusive city where everyone belongs. I believe in this city, I believe in you, and I believe in what we can achieve together. Thank you.
Raquel, thank you. And thank you to all of our candidates for those opening statements. It's now time for us to bring in our local media panel. And with us for this debate are Sebastian Braun from the Hamilton Spectator and Mr. Al Sweeney. He's from CH News. Each of our reporters will be choosing a candidate to answer a question, and then we will open up the topic to any other candidates who wish to speak to it. Try to keep all your responses limited to the 1 minute. And of course, I'll be giving a warning when your time has run out. Our first question comes from Sebastian Braun of the Hamilton Spectator. Take it away.
Thank you. I have a question for Jason here. There has been, for years, public discussion about what to do with the Discovery Center, a prime piece of city-owned real estate along the West Harbor. Once hailed as a wonderful local asset, it's been largely abandoned since the unfriendly departure of a restaurant there in 2017. What would you want council to do with the center, and should it remain in public hands or return to the private sector?
Thank you, Sebastian, for being here, and I'm sure many other debates, first of all. And you called it hailed it as a wonderful public asset, and I certainly feel the same. In fact, I'd be inclined to designate it as soon as humanly possible, which I'm sure Robin would appreciate here on this panel. Right now, we're going through a pretty massive visioning exercise for the Hamilton Waterfront Trust. I'm the chair of the West Harbor Subcommittee and have been for some time. And our mayor, who also sits on the committee, recently turned that visioning exercise into a more broadened approach where we're asking the public as well what to do with the adjacent city-owned lands currently operated by the Waterfront Trust. So the former Discovery Center, now the Hamilton Waterfront Trust Center, certainly had a tenant that didn't work out, restaurants of that size, and with not a lot of residential yet in that area. Unfortunately wasn't successful, but I think we're on the right track, and we're going to continue to listen to the people. And so, in short, to answer your question, that visioning exercise that we're currently undertaking and will for the next several months, will answer it more fully.
Thank you very much for that. We will now open this question up to other candidates who would like to respond to it. Yes, Raquel.
I believe this could be a great opportunity to partner with our Indigenous community. And we speak about creating a city where everyone belongs. And we need to start making that happen in our next decisions, and especially looking at land and culturally looking at how we can make people feel more a part of the community.
Yes, candidate Kretsch.
I've been listening to people talk about the Discovery Center for years. There were a bunch of meetings. I know Councillor Farr was at some of them down at the Waterfront. And people have been talking about this asset and asking what can be done with it. And I agree with what Raquel said. Folks in the Indigenous community have been asking for access to water, access to spaces near where they can practice, near where there can be ceremony. And we have to honor those. The fact is, it's been sitting vacant. I know we hear humanly possible. There's something that could be done to activate this in the meantime. It's not being used to its full potential right now. If I'm elected councillor, I'll make sure we get on with these things immediately, that we take the engagement and feedback that's already been done and bring that to the conversation. What I see happening time and time again in Hamilton is, 5, 6, 7 years ago, we had all these engagement sessions. Nothing happens. We're back to the engagement sessions again. I want to demonstrate to residents that we're listening, we're learning from what we're hearing, and we're applying that learning.
Additional comments? Yes, candidate Aaron.
I agree with both Raquel and Cameron here, because we need to take the action now. The planning has been going on for so many years. Because it is sitting, and while we are waiting to see what all the planning is going to bring forth, let's designate it to the people who have been asking for it and asking for it for years on end. Let's designate it to the Indigenous community. They could benefit from our step towards inclusion and diversity.
Thank you for that response. Let's get candidate McKee in.
Thank you. I believe that area is going to be overdeveloped, but it needs a anchor, and that anchor would be the Discovery Center. And the new report right now that's going out there is that it's going to be a part of the library and part of the cultural department to be a new museum. And I think that's a great idea to bring people back down there for a cultural connection with the waterfront. And I, right here, will, if that becomes the Hamilton Cemetery, I will donate all my heritage and Hamilton artifacts to it.
Thank you very much for that response. Candidate Rakovac, I know you want to get involved. However, we do have to move on, and we are going to give final word to candidate Farr to that particular question before our next question from Mr. Sweeney.
And thanks, Mike. And just for clarity and to bring a wrap on the conversation, the library, the culture, and Indigenous uses are very much part of the conversation going forward as we put together with that West Harbour subcommittee. The Indigenous community, great stuff that was presented by the public some years ago, is well represented in public art now, and will be some more on the harbour. It is being activated. It's been many rentals that have happened since Sarkoa left, and certainly I think we can all, if we've seen it, Erica McMeekin has done a great job animating that whole area, including the patio, over summer programming, and especially we want to thank her for that animation throughout the pandemic. We are taking action. This vision exercise is a public engagement session, and it's large, it's expansive, and it's one that's very important as we look towards the final decision that Council's going to have to make on this building.
Thank you very much all for your response to that particular question. We will now move on to our next media panel guest. He's from CHCH. You might know the guy. Al Sweeney, you're up.
Thanks. Thanks. So I have a question for you, Mr. Kretsch. Your campaign material refers to secrecy and cover-ups at City Hall on council. Mr. Shahan says a similar thing. We have Red Hill, we have the sewer leak. What else are you referring to, and what would you do about it as a councillor?
what I'm hearing from residents at the doors when I'm knocking is that people feel like council's not being transparent enough, period. They feel like there's all kinds of issues that city council is going into closed doors about. And we've even heard some councillors like Councillor Clark saying, hey, I don't think we should be going into closed doors about this. This shouldn't be a confidential item, and others sort of voting to make that happen. So sure, I agree with you. Sewergate is a big one that was confidential. And went into a secret session. Same thing with the Red Hill Valley Parkway. That's being kept from people. I would make sure that, especially when it matters addressing people's health and safety, like what happened with Sewergate, I would speak up. I wouldn't vote like our current councillor did 12 times to keep it a secret. I think that culture is rotting City Hall. It's breaking the trust that the public have in their city government, and we have to do better.
Who else would like to respond and
I'd
jump
like
in
to
on
respond.
that? Yes.
Yeah, thank
Candidate
you. And
Farr.
thanks, Al and CHCH, too, for participating in these debates. So it's appreciated. Obviously, there's been a lot of attention, and that word cover-up has been bandied about so much. And I think probably a lot of that Trump-era politics has come into play. I'll tell you, both situations that have been mentioned by Mr. Sweeney have been no picnic for this council, and certainly our senior staff and the rest on the trickle-down effect. But I will tell you, as a councillor who went into council that first time, we came out of council that first time we heard of both issues, Shadow Creek, and came out and told the public, don't go around there. There's terrible contamination. What we did not produce, because we were advised by one of the best so-called environmental lawyers of her time, is the quantity. And it was a travesty when we all found out about that. And certainly we found out about it by a leaked document, which is also a problem. The other thing with the Red Hill Valley Parkway, we heard about that. We came out, staff apologized for that, and we did the one thing that is the most onerous but the most detailed investigation you could possibly do, which is a public inquiry, which is unprecedented in this city. And so we want the answers there as well.
Thank you very much for that response.
Hopefully I'll
got
get
1
a chance to
we
talk
gotta
about
move around.
Shadoka a little
Anybody
later.
else like to jump in? Yes, Candidate Aaron?
I think what current council have done, we can call it various names, cover-ups, voting to go in camera sessions and not disclosing it to the public, or it coming out through a leak. It all seems like it's blaming the system instead of taking ownership of action that, yes, it was voted down multiple times for not sharing. You can give it many names, but at the end, people found out through public action where someone else had to take the first step and share it with the people that this has been going on. We need change.
Quick response, very quickly, and then we'll go to Mr. Kretsch for the final word.
What's important moving forward is that we focus on what role does the councillor play in a community. It's representing its constituents. And we need to think hard when we're at that table. Is this in the best interest of all our constituents? And if we don't have that as the primary focus, then we will continue to lead not transparently to the community.
Thank you very much. We will go to Candidate McKee. I see your hand up.
Okay. Thank you. I believe that this has been the biggest thing I've heard from all the people and all the doors that I've knocked on, is that this was covered up. This was not transparent. It was not responsible. That's why I came into this, is to be totally open. I have my phone number out there. I have my emails out there. I have my address out there. You can knock on my door, ask me anything, and I will let you know. If I don't know the answer, I will find out for you and return your call. This is what I've been hearing, and that's why I'm running.
As we continue to move on, Candidate Kretsch will give you final word before we move on to our next media question.
I heard Jason refer here to the environmental lawyer. If I was sitting on council, that would be a huge clue when you hire the top environmental lawyer, that there's a serious concern here the community needs to know about. And his colleagues didn't continue to vote as many times as he did, 12 times, after they received that legal advice. Many of them turned their votes toward transparency eventually, and those colleagues voted in favor of keeping things open. If I'm elected, I will put the health and safety of our residents above everything else.
Thank you all for your responses to that particular question. We've been getting some media questions coming in. So, hey, to our viewers at home, thank you very much. Tweeting us at Cable14 or sending us an email to election@cable14.com. Our next question from that comes into, and it's going to be going to Mr. McKee here. 166 people died from an overdose in 2021. Hamilton's opioid death rate is consistently higher than the provincial average since data collection started in 2015. If elected, what will you do to provide easier access and quicker treatment and detox facilities, as many folks have been turned away due to available beds?
Thank you. We have detox in Ward 2, and it's necessary for these people. And what needs to be done is not just look at the treatment of these people, but to find out the reason for the treatment and the reason for their drug use. That's a mental health decision. And so if we can back up the history of those people's lives and find out the core of their hurt, that's where we can do more work and more help.
Response from our candidates. Candidate Kretsch.
I recently spoke at Overdose Awareness Day at the Hub, and I had a chance to speak to many people who have been impacted by the opioid crisis. And what they say that they want are more safe supply. They want consumption and treatment sites, smoking and inhalation sites. They want more support for people. And that's what they're hearing not only on the ground, but what experts are saying we need to do if we're going to combat this crisis. We can't simply hope it's going to get better. It's getting worse. This is a completely preventable tragedy, and there's much more the city can do to meet people where they're at, be on the ground, and provide those supports to people in Ward 2 and across the city.
Yes.
What also needs to be addressed here is the short-term housing solutions and mental health resources and addiction resources that are needed immediately. We need to create a safe space for people to be able to not only have shelter, but access to these resources. I personally have been affected by an overdose within my family, and I understand that if you don't have people advocating on behalf of you, you can get lost in the system and breaking down stigmas that are related to people who are also facing houselessness and facing addictions. And we need to seriously look at providing these resources immediately, speaking to groups that have the resources to provide this, look at cities who are implementing these programs, and get these things done now.
Thank you very much. Candidate Farr.
It's a great topic, and it's certainly a very important one, particularly for Ward 2 in the inner city. This is a health issue. We must make no mistake about that, and health issues are overseen by the provincial government, and we've been grossly underfunded for some time, and currently by the current progressive conservative government. That said, we have done a lot locally. I would suggest probably more than most communities. We have, that I know of, in Ward 2 right now, 3 safe consumption and treatment sites, and likely there'll be more to come. And so we recognize that opioid is a crisis worldwide. We do what we can locally, and we continue to advocate for the dollars we need for this health issue from the provincial government.
Thank you for that response. Candidate Aaron, if you would like to respond?
Yes.
Yes, please.
What we have done so far is just keep things at bay. Homelessness is, I find it to be one of the root causes, not the root cause, but one of the causes that is causing a cascade of effects throughout our community. It's not just that we need more organizations doing, but we need support from the city council taking a stance towards making the progress and the change. Working with the community organizations to address the problems that have been very visible and blatantly visible everywhere throughout Ward 2. We need to make those changes that we have been saying. Homelessness, safe consumption sites, yes, we need to invest more of our capital towards those rather than designating it towards, let's say, massive amounts of condo developments that are going on.
Thank you very much for that response. Candidate McKee, if you would like to have a final word on that topic, or we can move on.
Yeah, I'll take a final word.
Okay.
The This opioid situation is a slow suicide, and no suicide should be ignored. You need to get in there and help these people and not have them fall through the cracks through the system. You have to have social workers, you have to have drug rehabilitation, and the idea is that people are people, and we are here to help them. It's a tragedy.
Thank you very much for that. And our media panel will be coming back. We're going to ask our media panel to please keep your questions brief and to the point. Sebastian Braun from The Spectator, you're up.
Thank you. I have a question for Cameron. Homelessness in this ward is a huge issue, and there's a group of local anti-poverty advocates who have put forward a creative solution to kind of curb that. They're called the Hamilton Alliance for Tiny Homes, and they want to build pint-sized cabins in underused or otherwise derelict properties like a closed high school. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution, but it's a safer stopgap than, living in a tent in a park. What do you make of that initiative, and would you support it?
Yeah, I think we need a variety of solutions. This is one good short-term solution that can serve a population that needs that access to immediate housing and for whom that will be a good fit. I've talked to them, I've attended some of their meetings, and think the work they're doing is important. I think, though, the bigger question that we should be asking ourselves is what the root causes of homelessness are, and those are making sure there's affordable housing. These shelters are great, but they don't provide adequate long-term housing for people. We also have to look at the shelter system, which right now is acting as if it is housing. It's supposed to be a transitional space where folks are there for a short period of time, and people are staying for way too long there because there's nowhere for them to go. And secondly, mental health and wraparound supports that go with that housing, which we're also not investing in. What we're doing now, by sending folks to emergency rooms, by sending police to encampments, by those processes are extraordinarily expensive, and they're costing us a lot of money. And no, we can't solve these things overnight, but we have to address the root causes of homelessness.
Thank you very much for that response. I saw, Raquel, your hand was up.
Yes. I've actually been in many talks with the Hamilton Alliance Tiny Shelters and have been very on board with their initiatives and what they're putting forward. And in conversation with them, they are also working with people who are part of a Better Tent City in the city of Kitchener and collaborating with different non-for-profits here. And we need to bring hats to the table to discuss how we move forward. They are looking for a piece of land that can house about 50 tiny shelters and provide 24-hour support for mental health and for addictions. And in order to move forward and build a thriving community, that means we look after our houseless community and we start to work towards breaking down the stigmas associated with those things. What I know is that the HATS group's intentions are to move forward, and they already are this winter with starting their project and in finding a piece of land. But the city needs to be proactive in opening their door to them and helping to create solutions. That's what we need. And the city can be a participant and getting creative and thinking out of the box like many cities are doing, like the city of Kitchener, like the city of Toronto. But we need to have those dialogues. We need to work together.
Thank you very much for that response. We do have to move on. Robin, I saw your hand up, please.
We could talk about this for a long time. Homelessness is a tragedy in our city. What we need is a plan, and a plan is now. I have two plans for this. One plan is to have the tiny houses on a strip of land on Strathern Street. It's the lots are licensed with water and sewer, and the tiny houses can go all along there. There's no NIMBY in the area because Jamesville is being demolished, and that won't be any people there for the longest time. That is the perfect spot for it, and at the far end, the east end, there's a parking lot where the services can come in and deal with these people. The other one is Sir Johnny Macdonald High School. It should be turned into a mission, a hostel, and a place for these people to be warm, cleaned, and have washrooms.
Robin, thank you very much for that response. We will give final word to this particular question to Cameron. I'm sorry, but we do have to move on due to time. Cameron, a final word to you.
Thank you. I agree with what Raquel said earlier about the city stepping up. The city owns 10,000 acres of public land. 1,000 of those acres are underutilized. vacant, otherwise sitting in the form of parking lots. There is so much the City of Hamilton can do, so much we can bring to the table. I've listened to council say for so long, it's the provincial government and the federal government need to invest. And what they're saying back to lots of funders I've spoken to is the city needs to come to the table. We can come to the table with these land assets, we can build affordable housing, and we can prioritize this. If I'm elected, I will do that. I will ask for a report to council to get that happening right away.
Thank you very much. Quick question from Al Sweeney from CH. You're up.
Councillor Farr, Ward 2, it's a high crime area, or it has a fair amount of crime in this ward. You're calling for more police to deal with this. Is this the right time to be calling for more police when it's not a question of defunding police, but there are a lot of calls for the resources that go into the police to be put in other areas, so that when somebody like a homeless person or a drug user, which we've just discussed, is in crisis, the response comes from someone who's not carrying a gun, does not have a police uniform, and the intimidation factor. Is this the right time to be talking about hiring more police?
Thank you for the question, Al. Certainly more of repurposing existing police resources than hiring new police, and that's actually something we are doing. As a proud member of the Hamilton Police Service Board, we have more and more officers going into uniform and back on the streets, and I would want to maintain that because right now, Al, public safety and, like you say, crime or the perception of crime is very much one of the prevalent concerns in this election, more than I've ever experienced before. And so we have, I understand that there's some that don't like police involved in that, and it was actually never part of Hamilton Police or any police team's function to do social service work like you're suggesting and like you're talking about. But over time, Hamilton Police, like other police forces, inherited that role, and they've come up with great programs. More recently, rapid intervention, where they're not going as a duo, but as one police officer with one health worker, and that's just one of many innovative ways they're connecting with that public and trying to solve that problem one at a time. Social Navigator's the best. I'll put that on the website, jasonfarr.ca, and you'll learn more about the
Thank you very much
ways
for that
police are
response.
handling.
We have time for two more responses to that particular question before we get to the open forum. Cameron, I saw your hand up first.
Thanks, Mike. I've spoken to fellow Duranders, and they're concerned about the crime in their community. I hear people talking about bicycle thefts, people breaking into cars, other kinds of things like that. What I also hear from them, Al, is that they're not seeing when they call the police that folks are showing up to respond to those things directly. They're calling in, but there's no one coming out to actually respond to these items. In fact, from 2015 to 2020, the Hamilton Police Service added 20% more frontline constables, but nothing seems to have changed when it comes to this. The previous chief of police, the current chief of police, to address Councillor Farr's comment, said that they're not qualified to be doing mental health support. Great. Seems like everyone's in agreement. Everyone thinks that what we should be doing is redirecting these funds to mental health support. That's what we should do. I would be happy to sit on the Hamilton Police Services Board and have these very difficult conversations in a sincere way with the police to make them understand what the community wants and needs and what we can do to make this better.
Raquel, I saw your hand up. You'll have the final comment before we move to open forum.
Breaking up encampments and video surveillance cameras are not a solution. They're absolutely not a solution on how we can move forward to building a thriving community. We must look again at short-term housing solutions. It is the only way forward. We are putting money into a Band-Aid situation that will not help anyone. It will only further create divide in our community amongst community members, small business owners, and we need to focus on putting our resources and time into creating better public perception of the police and what that looks like. And also, again, to speak to the idea that mental health resources or mental health calls, and addiction calls should not be going directly to the police. We need proper people on the ground to address this.
In fairness, the question was posed to candidate Farr, so candidate Farr, I will give you last word on this topic.
And briefly, I'm hearing now, I'll talk about, safety, public safety. Police are trained like nobody else to keep us safe. That's what they do. What I hear is we need to do as good a job as possible, because right now there are folks that are scared, they're intimidated, they're worried we're going to decline back to an age of downtown living, of stagnation that went on for decades. Nobody wants that, and there's one group of people that are trained in addressing public safety, and that's the Hamilton Police Service. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Probably no service in this city or any city is, but they do their very best, and when the hits the fan, they go to it while all of us go the other way. And we need to appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. And again, a big thank you to our media colleagues, Al Sweeney of CHCH and Sebastian Braun of the Hamilton Spectator. It's now time to move on to the open forum, where we will give as many candidates as we can a minute to direct a question to one other candidate. That candidate will then have up to 1 minute to respond, and then we will open up the floor to that particular topic and to the candidates. Look, I'm going to do my best to keep your questions and time online, so if we can continue to move forward, that will be great. And of course, I will let you know when our time requires us to move on. We drew numbers ahead of our broadcast to determine the order for this segment. Robin McKee, you drew number 1. Your question and the candidate you would like to pose it to, please.
I'd like to pose this to Jason Farr, and my question is about transit. The transit, the A line, the B line, they're all going really fast up at the mountain and down King Street. Now, blast should be pulled in to this. My question is, can the HSR be free to everyone?
Well, of course it can.
Yes.
We would have to make a decision as a council next term if anybody wants to bring that motion forward. I think it's only been talked about by Councillor Marula in the past on a couple of occasions. He may have asked in a motion for staff to report back on the concept, never went anywhere.
Why?
The reality is the cost, right? I mean, half of HSR's, mega millions being funded is from the taxpayers. The other half is profits that we make from the HSR, give or take, Robin. So while it is, I really love the concept, and just even if it was from a promotional standpoint for a few short months throughout the city at the appropriate time. Right now, ridership is way down still with pandemic woes and so on and so forth, and it may not be the right time. But somewhere down the road, I would absolutely entertain something like that, if only to promote a transit and transit use.
Other candidates like to get involved with this particular question? I saw Mr. Kretsch's hand up first, and then Mr. Aaron.
In response to Robin's question about the blast network, I think we have to be really careful about how we plan and design our downtown streets to respond to how that network's going to grow. Right now, our streets are pretty unsafe as it is, and I think we really have to focus on making sure that the design matches the capacity, that we grow smartly. To the point of free transit, we have to make it a priority. We can't wait till later, think about it later, possibly bring it forward in a future term of council. We have to act on those plans now. There's many groups around the world and around Canada, some in Hamilton, who are calling for free transit. I think we owe it to everybody to ensure that the barriers are taken away for environmentally friendly ways to get around the city. If we're taking our climate emergency seriously, which I am, I think that's a duty we have as a city council to ensure that we're considering this as soon as possible and in the next term of council.
Taxpayers are burdened like never before, and you want to throw $150 million at
Thank
free
you very
transit.
much.
I don't
Jason,
know if we
appreciate
want
that.
to
We
be
do have to
careful
move
about
on.
our timing
We
here.
do have to move on.
I don't know where
discuss
the
it. We
pot
shouldn't
of
just keep
gold
putting
is.
it off,
Candidate
right?
Aaron here, if
should
you'd
plan
like
to
to jump
discuss
in,
it.
please.
Yes. The system we have right now, even though it is being funded from multiple sources, we do have city funds where we can, I don't know how far off free we can achieve, given everything. We can go as close to free as possible by removing barriers, as Cameron said, by offering services to the marginalized communities at a fair rate which they can afford. For example, a certain percentage of their yearly income, as an example. We won't be able to get to free because, well, as our current councillor, Jason Farr, has said, funding is always an obstacle. But as people who are representing our community, if elected, I'll try to get you to as close to free as possible. Let's call it free adjacent.
Thank you very much for that response. Candidate Rakovac?
As a council, moving forward, we need to stop tabling things. We need to start dealing with them imminently, right away, right now. We're using language that's, in my opinion, not transparent. We need to move forward with the community by again, working together, unity, trust, and continuing to tell our community that we're going to table things and speak about it later does not impart that.
Thank you to all for that. Look, I know these are big topics and we don't have a lot of time to kind of touch on each one, but we are doing our best. So thank you for that. And with that said, candidate Rakovac, it is now your opportunity to ask a question to a candidate of your choice.
Thank you. This is to Councillor Farr. Mental health is becoming an increasingly important topic of discussion, and taking care of oneself physically and mentally is essential. Mental health significantly impacts many of us, and we can see how harmful it can affect anyone. When we discuss leadership, a necessary part of leading a community begins with the mental health investment we are working on each day in our lives. We need to start taking this more seriously. I recognize that leading with clarity, strength, compassion, and resilience begins with how I invested in my mental health daily. Councillor Farr, I would like to ask you how you specifically invest in your physical and mental health and the steps you take as a leader to support and promote mental health initiatives in our community.
Well, I could do better. Everyone would probably agree with that. I had a little bit of an issue that I didn't publicize during the heart of the pandemic. I visited the hospital probably more than folks with COVID-19. It had to do with my thyroid, and it certainly didn't help with the weight gain. That said, it did get me on the right track with the professionals, and we've got some amazing professionals here in Hamilton. So personally, I completely agree with you. Physical health equates to better mental health, and I was on a bit of a roll there at the start of the term and visiting the gym all the time, and certainly found that I could put in a few more hours a week. That said, you get a lot of benefit and energy, mental health energy, when you work really hard at this job. There's no slowing down if you're serious about being a councillor for Ward 2. You're often very active, and it in the terms of your question with relating to promotional, I mean, I'm absolutely focused on wherever and whenever possible, and working always closely with culture and recreation on making sure we promote that and making sure our kids are active as well.
Thank you very much. Open for debate.
I think everyone's been struggling with their mental and physical health during COVID. I think that's been really present and apparent in Ward 2, a place where most people rent, where most people live in apartment buildings, where there's not adequate access to green spaces and parks in our community, a place and a space where lots of people go out to exercise and to take a break. I think that we have to do more to invest in these kinds of things. I know that a group tried at the beginning of the pandemic to say, hey, we need more spaces outside. Let's try closing down James Street North for a little while. Council turned this idea down. We have to think about, as we continue to go through more pandemics, as we continue to have health crises, how we're prioritizing public health, how we're prioritizing mental and physical health for those who don't have access to the spaces that many homeowners have access to, who don't have access to a green space. It's important, again, especially in a ward, especially downtown, where the majority of people who live here are rent and live in apartment buildings.
Thank you very much for that response. From anybody else? Yes, candidate Aaron.
As everyone has prefaced here for multiple times thus far, mental health is the most important thing right now, especially given the pandemic. We have been stuck at home. Ward 2, as I personally experience, living in an apartment without adequate light coming in or having access to green spaces where I can go out, stretch my legs, take my guide dog for a walk, take him out of his harness and give him some space to run around. I don't have access to that. I would like to make that happen for you. Having not access to the green spaces where I could go out and let out and breathe and experience the clarity of mental health at my peak and have my physical health, I can see that not a lot of people have access to that. If elected, one of my priorities would be to provide better green spaces where you can go out, have access to that.
Thank you very much for that response. And by the way, Jeter is hiding there. He's an adorable dog. Candidate McKee, if you like, final response. Otherwise, we'll move on to Candidate Farr.
Move on, please.
Candidate Farr. Candidate Farr. I'll get it right. Your question and who you would like to propose it to, please.
Yes, thank you. It's for Cameron, and I have it here. Throughout the pandemic, we nearly had every downtown park, which you're hoping, I guess, that more people can access. Housing unsafe, unnecessary, and inhumane encampments. Regularly, you demonstrated support for encampments. The Spectator called you a colleague of the Encampment Support Network. In July 2021, you tweet, quote, encampment evictions are not the answer, end quote. In May, you retweet, quote, as HESN, we see it as our role to support encampment defense, end quote. You participated in a protest hoping to physically block police from enforcing the law at Central Park, and you publicly called for defunding police in July of 2020, tweeting, quote, we're calling for an immediate 20% reduction to the police budget, which amounts to $35 million. The police board soon found that equates to taking 279 police officers off the streets. Community safety, as we mentioned already, is prevalent in this election. How do you, Cameron, ensure a safer community when the public record demonstrates over and over again you want to reduce the number of professionals sworn to protect us by 279 officers?
To that, Candidate Kretsch.
There's not enough time to talk to all that because I only get a minute. I'll start at the top. No one I've ever spoken to supports encampments as a solution to anything. That's not what I've said, and not what anyone has said.
You.
I understand what you said. I supported protecting those who are living in encampments, which is not saying that I think encampments are the solution to anything. The solution is dealing with the upstream causes of homelessness, which you, frankly, have neglected as the president of City Housing Hamilton for some time. Those are mental health supports that are wraparound. It's totally true.
No, it's not.
You've taken off the market or sold off more units than you've ever built. There's no net new housing in Hamilton that's affordable under City Housing Hamilton as the city's largest housing provider.
A whole lot to come.
There may be a whole lot to come, Jason, but I'm talking about your record. What I'm saying is that we have to have compassion for folks. We have to provide affordable housing to them, and we have to provide the wraparound supports. Those are the only solutions that are going to work. I'm going to listen to the experts that tell us that, not take them to court.
Raquel.
Councillor Farr, you're elected representative for Ward 2, correct?
3 terms.
Your job?
Proudly.
And your job is to represent all constituents in your ward?
Everyone counts.
Okay, so when was the last time you were on the ground learning about your constituents in encampments?
In encampments?
Yes, those encampments, because those include
Saturday.
those, sir.
Saturday.
Those.
I'm answering
Those are part of your constituents. Those people, those houseless people are residents of this community.
Yes.
They are meeting challenges and misfortune, and there's many issues surrounding why they are in these encampments. When was the last time over the last 3 years, let's speak to the pandemic, that you were on the ground helping all of your constituents survive?
So as your elected official, and as we mentioned earlier, we are housing first in the city of Hamilton.
I want to know what you've specifically done. You, as a human being.
I have supported an initiative that has housed 1,100 homeless individuals.
But when was the last time you were on the ground?
Councillor or Candidate Farr, respond, please. Candidate Farr, respond.
Okay, thank you. And thank you for the question. We have housed about 1,100 in this pandemic, just in the last few years.
You specifically. You're not speaking to
Please
the question.
I'm running this file. I can tell you, I'm running with this file. It's so prevalent in downtown.
I have never seen you. By the way, I've been doing it for 5 years. I've never seen you in Ward 2 helping your.
Any other candidates like to jump in on this? There's some interruption going on. Anybody else? Yes, Candidate Kretsch.
Could I just finish the point I was making?
Sure, go ahead.
Final word, and then Candidate Kretsch, really quickly, please.
It's obviously a hot topic. I mean,
very much so. Agreed.
I grew up in poverty.
It's not a hot topic. It's a passionate topic about people that care about people.
As a lived experience, I can tell you, I know firsthand what it's like, and I can
then
tell
you
you
should step
that.
up and do better. If
Thank you, Candidate.
Nobody does better than this city. I'll throw it on Hamilton on jasonfarr.ca. Nobody does better at addressing housing and homelessness than the city of Hamilton. No one has proven me wrong on that yet, and I've been saying it publicly for years. Thank you.
Final word.
I remember when the houseless folks who were living in encampments were being evicted from Ferguson, and I was down there to watch as a legal observer to see what was happening, to talk to people. I was there over the course of 4 days. I think what Raquel is saying is important. I know I've been showing up to have those conversations. I didn't see the counselor there for 1 minute while in the freezing rain, people had their belongings destroyed. We need a compassionate counselor who shows up for all their residents, who is present during the things that they mete out to people. If you're going to pass these policies, show up when they're delivered.
Thank you very much for that. We do have to get one more question in from our candidate. Candidate Aaron, your question and who you are posing it to, please.
Unfortunately, I'm posing it to our current councillor. Sorry for putting you on the spot.
That's what we sign up for, right? No problem.
What would you do to represent your community? You have been in the position of councillor for 3 terms, as you mentioned. Time and time again, leadership and representation of the community is being questioned. Inclusivity, diversity is part of the community. Ward 2 consists of people of so many different ethnicities, visible, non-visible groups. What within your power as a Hamiltonian, as a candidate, as well as future leadership roles, how would you represent your community?
Thank you for that question. Candidate Farr.
I would continue to do, and I thank you for the question too, the things that we are doing, and we are quite obviously very supportive. Equity, diversity, and inclusion is a mandate of council, has been for a number of years. I believe you yourself sat on the accessibility committee. We've listened and acted on a lot of the recommendations over the years, and in 2020 we began our multi-year accessibility plan. What you're talking about represents the demographics of downtown, and it has for some time. And I certainly have very much taken great pleasure in serving a very diverse community in ways that you do not want me, Mike, to list at this time. But it's an important question, and it's important that we stay the course. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Very quick response from anybody. I saw Cameron, your hand go up.
Yeah, as a member of the LGBTQ community and someone who sat as a chair of the LGBTQ advisory committee, this matters a lot to me. It also matters that we keep listening to people. What I hear right now from communities is that we're not listening to what their needs are. We're asking for their feedback. We're asking for them to rubber stamp things, but we're not taking those things seriously and action in them in any kind of reasonable way. I've seen it happen time and time again. I think community representation matters a lot in a different kind of way, and the way I maybe heard your question was a bit different. But I think it's really important that we live in the communities that we represent. I think being here, walking the streets every day, using the services in our city, really means that I understand exactly what's happening. I don't need to get a phone call to understand that we're missing something is happening in our community that needs attention. I know because I live here.
Listen, thank you so much to all of our candidates, and I truly, truly appreciate your passion, and we know that 1 minute to answer some of these big questions is not enough, so I urge our viewers to please go to their websites and read up on their platforms and what they represent. Once again, our candidates for Ward 2 are Shahan Aaron, Jason Farr, Cameron Kretsch, Robin McKee, and Raquel Rakovac. This concludes our Ward 2 debate. Remember, it's our Hamilton, it's our vote, and Election Day is October 24th. You can find everything you need to know, including a list of all of the candidates running for City Council, as well as the public and Catholic school boards, on the City of Hamilton's website at hamilton.ca/elections. Please, I can't stress this enough, get out to vote, whether in person or by mail-in ballot. Then, join us that evening for all your local election results, October 24th. Circle it on your calendar. A reminder that you can find a complete schedule of all of our upcoming election debates on our website at cable14.com/elections. And we especially invite you to join us on Tuesday, September 27th, beginning at 7 p.m. as our debates conclude with the live mayoral debate. I'm Mike Fortune. Thank you very much for joining us.
Do you have feedback on Cable 14's programs? Let us know by calling 905-523-1414, extension 227, or email feedback@cable14.com.
Welcome to Business Wellness in Hamilton. On today's show, we'll be discussing the topic, how self-management impacts bullying in the workplace, a very important topic. So let's get started with our special guest, Marianne Kerr, author and founder of the Medalist Group. Welcome, Marianne.
Hello, Linda. It is so great to be here and to see you.
It's wonderful to have you on the show. And I'd like to start by having you talk a little